Providence Municipal Court, Rhode Island. A woman in her late 30s stands at the podium, hands gripping the edges. Beside her, a teenage girl stares at the floor. Case 8847, defendant Sarah Chen, charged with operating under the influence, BAC 0.12. Judge Caprio looks up. Ms. Chen, is this your daughter? Yes, Your Honor. Her voice cracks. I asked her to come with me today. The girl's eyes well up. I wanted her to see me take responsibility. I've been sober 43 days. The courtroom goes quiet. Judge Caprio leans forward. That took courage, bringing her here. Sarah's hands shake. She deserves better than who I was that night. The daughter reaches over, touches her mother's arm. Miss Chen, the judge says softly, let's talk about where you are now. The clerk shuffled papers at her desk, waiting. Judge Caprio adjusted his reading glasses and looked at the file again. Then at the two figures standing before him, the mother rigid with nervous energy, the daughter quiet and watchful. Miss Chen, he said gently, let's start from the beginning. You understand the charge against you? Yes, Your Honor. Sarah's voice was steadier now, though her hands remained locked on the podium's edge. Operating under the influence, October 12th, blood alcohol content .12. The judge nodded. And you were arrested where? At. Sarah swallowed. At the parking lot of Lincoln High School. I was there to pick up my daughter. The girl beside her, Emily, according to the file, didn't look up. Her shoulders were tense, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. 2:47 in the afternoon, Judge Caprio said, reading from the report. On a Tuesday. Yes, Your Honor. He set the papers down and leaned back slightly. Ms. Chen, I've been doing this a long time. I see a lot of things in this courtroom, but I don't often see someone bring their child to a DUI hearing. He paused. Tell me why she's here. Sarah's breath caught. She glanced at Emily, who finally looked up, meeting her mother's eyes with an expression that held both hurt and something else. Support, maybe, or determination. I asked her to come, Sarah said. I wanted her to see this, to see me take responsibility for what I did. That's not easy, the judge said. No. Sarah's voice wavered. But lying to her would have been easier. Hiding it would have been easier. And I'm done taking the easy way. Judge Caprio studied the two of them for a moment. The mother fighting to maintain composure. The daughter standing with the kind of quiet strength that shouldn't belong to someone so young. Emily, he said, addressing the girl directly. That's your name? Yes, Your Honor. Her voice was soft but clear. You chose to come here today? Yes. Why? Emily glanced at her mother, then back at the judge. Because she asked me to. And because... She hesitated. Because I wanted to see if people could tell when someone was really trying. The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of the overhead lights. Your Honor, Sarah said, her voice thick. I don't expect mercy. I know what I did. I put people in danger. I put my own daughter in danger. She stopped, collecting herself. I wanted her to see that I know that I'm facing it. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. 43 days sober, you said? Yes, Your Honor, since the night of the arrest. That's good. He looked at Emily again. And you? How are you doing with all this? The question seemed to catch the girl off guard. She blinked, and for a moment looked like she might cry. I'm okay, Your Honor. It's all right to not be okay, he said gently. This is hard on you too. Emily nodded, pressing her lips together. All right. Judge Caprio picked up the file again. Let's talk about what happened that day. Miss Chen, tell me about October 12th. Sarah took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her words came slowly, as though each one cost her something. I had finished work early that day, around noon. One of my clients canceled, so I had the afternoon free. She paused. A friend texted me, asked if I wanted to meet for lunch. We went to a place downtown, had some wine. How much wine? Judge Caprio asked. 2 glasses, maybe a little more. Sarah's knuckles were white against the podium. I convinced myself I'd be fine after a couple hours, that I could drive. What time did you leave the restaurant? Around 2:15. The judge looked at the report. And you were pulled over at 2:47. I wasn't pulled over, Your Honor. Sarah's voice dropped. The officer was already in the school parking lot. I made a wide turn coming in, overcorrected. He saw me and came over immediately. Emily shifted beside her mother, her jaw tight. The officer administered a field sobriety test, Judge Caprio said, reading from the report. You failed. He arrested you in the parking lot. Yes. The word came out barely above a whisper. In front of other parents, other students. Yes, Your Honor. And Emily she was at volleyball practice, Sarah said, her voice breaking now. Inside the gym. The officer called the school office. They sent someone to get her. She came out and... Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, unable to continue. Emily spoke quietly. I saw her in handcuffs. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Your Honor, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face now. I called her from the police car, before they took me to the station. I told her what I'd done, what was happening, because I didn't want her to hear it from someone else. I didn't want her to think I was hiding from it. Judge Caprio was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured. That must have been one of the hardest phone calls you've ever made. It was, Sarah whispered, but not as hard as seeing her face when she came to pick up my car keys later. The judge set the file aside and folded his hands. Ms. Chen, what do you do for a living? I'm a pharmaceutical sales representative, Sarah said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I work for a company that manufactures pain management medications. I meet with doctors, hospitals, surgery centers. That's demanding work. Yes, Your Honor. Quarterly targets, constant travel. It's a lot of pressure. Judge Caprio nodded. Are you married? Sarah's expression tightened. Divorced. 8 months ago. I see. So you're raising Emily on your own? Yes. Working full-time, single parent, high-pressure job. The judge's tone was gentle, understanding. That's a lot to carry. It is, so Sarah admitted. But that's not an excuse for what I did. I'm not looking for excuses, Judge Caprio said. I'm trying to understand how you got here. He paused. The wine at lunch, was that unusual for you? Sarah looked down. The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Your Honor, she said finally, I need to be honest with you, and with my daughter. She glanced at Emily, whose face was carefully neutral. Drinking at lunch that day, it wasn't unusual anymore. It had become normal. The courtroom was very quiet. How long had it been normal? The judge asked. Since the divorce. Maybe a little before. Sarah's voice was steady now, as though she'd decided that honesty was the only path forward. At first it was just wine with dinner. Then wine while I made dinner. Then wine when I got home from work. It helped me. I thought it helped me manage the stress, the loneliness. How often were you drinking? Sarah closed her eyes. Every night, for about 5 months. Not drunk, at least I told myself I wasn't drunk. But regular. Consistent. Emily's hands clenched at her sides, but she didn't move. And during the day? Judge Caprio asked. That started about 2 months before the arrest, Sarah said. Just on Fridays at first, client lunches. It seemed professional, social. Then it spread to other days. Other lunches. She opened her eyes and looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, the day I was arrested wasn't the first time I'd driven after drinking. The admission seemed to cost her everything, but it was the last time, she added quietly. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Tell me about that. Sarah's hands were shaking visibly now. Emily, without looking at her mother, reached over and placed one hand gently on Sarah's arm. The gesture was brief, almost unconscious, but it steadied something. The arrest, Sarah began. The handcuffs, the other parents watching. That was horrible, but it wasn't the wake-up call. She glanced at Emily. The wake-up call was seeing my daughter's face. When she came to the parking lot? Judge Caprio asked. No, later, when she came to the police station to get my car keys. Sarah's voice dropped. Your Honor, I'd seen her disappointed before, frustrated with me, angry even. But that night, when she looked at me through the glass at the station, she looked scared. Not of me. For me. Emily's jaw tightened, her eyes fixed on the floor. She didn't yell, Sarah continued. She didn't cry. She just asked me one question. How long has this been going on? And I realized she'd known. She'd been watching me drink every night. She'd seen the bottles in the recycling. She'd noticed when I was too tired to help with her homework, when I forgot to ask about her day. Sarah's voice broke. She'd been living with a mother who was there but not really present. That must have been painful to hear, the judge said. It was the truth, Sarah said, and I needed to hear it. Judge Caprio was quiet for a moment, letting the weight of the confession settle. What did you do next? I called my sponsor the next morning. You already had a sponsor? No, Your Honor. I called AA that night from the police station. They gave me a number for a woman named Patricia. I called her at 6 a.m. the next day. Went to my first meeting at 7. Sarah managed a weak smile. I've been to 42 meetings in 43 days. You missed one day. I had to work, but I made it up with an online meeting that night. The judge looked impressed. That's serious commitment. It's the only thing keeping me sober, Sarah said simply. The meetings, Patricia, my therapist, and Emily. Judge Caprio turned to the girl. Emily, your mother mentioned you're attending something too? Emily nodded. Alateen, Your Honor. It's for family members of alcoholics? How is that going? It helps, she said quietly. I didn't know other kids were going through the same thing. Ms. Chen, Judge Caprio said, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need an honest answer. Okay. Are you working the steps? Sarah nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I'm on step 4 right now, making a moral inventory. She hesitated. It's hard, really hard, facing everything I've done wrong. That's the point, the judge said gently. It's supposed to be hard. I know. He looked at his notes again. You said something earlier that caught my attention. You said that day wasn't the first time you'd driven after drinking. Sarah's expression tightened. No, Your Honor, it wasn't. How many times? I don't know exactly. Maybe a dozen times. Maybe more. She forced herself to continue. I kept telling myself I was fine, that I was careful, that I'd only had 1 or 2 drinks, that I'd waited long enough. Her voice turned bitter. I was lying to myself about a lot of things. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. That's a brave thing to admit, especially in court, especially with your daughter standing right here. I promised her I wouldn't lie anymore, Sarah said. Not to her, not to myself, not to you. Emily spoke up then, her voice stronger than before. Your Honor, can I say something? Of course. My mom. Emily paused, choosing her words carefully. She's different now. Really different. She gets up early for meetings. She comes home after work instead of stopping somewhere. We eat dinner together. She asks about my day, and she actually remembers what I tell her. That sounds like real change, Judge Caprio said. It is. Emily's voice cracked slightly. Before, she was there, but she wasn't present. She'd nod when I talked, but I could tell she wasn't listening. Now she's there. Really there. Sarah was crying silently, tears running down her face. Your Honor, Emily continued, the day she got arrested, I was scared. I was so scared, but I was also... She stopped, struggling. It's okay, the judge said. Take your time. I was relieved, Emily said finally, the words coming out in a rush. I was relieved that someone else finally saw what I'd been seeing, that it was out in the open, that maybe now something would change. The courtroom was absolutely still. And has it changed? Judge Caprio asked gently. Emily looked at her mother. Yes. She's getting help. Real help. And she asked me to come here today because she wanted me to see that she's serious. Her voice steadied. So I'm here to tell you, she is serious. Judge Caprio took off his reading glasses and set them on the bench. Emily, that took courage too. Thank you for being honest with me. She nodded, wiping at her eyes. He turned back to Sarah. Ms. Chen, let's talk about the consequences you've already faced. Yes, Your Honor. Your license was suspended for 30 days. You've served that? Yes. It just ended last week. And you completed the mandatory alcohol education program? Yes, Your Honor. 3 sessions. I have the certificate. The judge made a note. The standard fine for a first offense DUI is $500, plus court costs of $285. That's $785 total. Sarah nodded. I understand. But money isn't the only price you've paid, is it? No. Sarah's voice was quiet. My insurance went from $140 a month to $380. My employer put me on a performance improvement plan. They found out about the arrest through the court records. If I have any more incidents, I'll be terminated. What about your relationship with your daughter? Sarah looked at Emily, her expression raw. That's been the highest cost. The trust I lost, the fear I caused, the months she spent worrying about me, watching me, wondering if I was going to spiral further. But you're rebuilding that, Judge Caprio said. We're trying, Sarah said. But I know it takes time. I know I can't just fix it overnight. No, the judge agreed. You can't. He looked at Emily. How's your mom doing? Really? Emily considered the question seriously. She's doing well, Your Honor. I can see it. The difference between who she was 2 months ago and who she is now, it's real. She's not perfect. She still gets stressed, but she doesn't drink. She goes to meetings instead. She talks to her sponsor. She talks to me. Do you feel safe with her? The question was direct, heavy. Yes, Emily said without hesitation. I do. Sarah closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. Ms. Chen, Judge Caprio said, you're also in ongoing treatment. Yes, Your Honor. I'm enrolled in a year-long outpatient program. 2 90-minute sessions per week, individual therapy once a week, and the AA meetings. That's a significant time commitment. It's necessary, Sarah said simply. I'm an alcoholic. I can't manage this alone. The judge nodded, making notes. You've taken this seriously. That's clear. Judge Caprio set his pen down and looked at both of them, mother and daughter, standing together yet somehow separate, bound by love and hurt and the difficult work of healing. Ms. Chen, he said, let me tell you what I see here. Sarah straightened, bracing herself. I see someone who made a serious mistake. A dangerous mistake. His voice was firm but not harsh. You drove under the influence. You put yourself at risk. You put other people at risk. You put your daughter at risk. Yes, Your Honor. But I also see someone who didn't run from that mistake, who didn't minimize it or make excuses. He paused. You brought your daughter to court. Do you know how rare that is? Sarah shook her head slightly. In 30 years on this bench, I can count on one hand how many times I've seen a parent bring their child to a hearing like this. Most people hide it. They're ashamed, which they should be, but they hide it. They pretend it didn't happen. They lie to their families, to themselves. He looked directly at Sarah. You did the opposite. I couldn't lie to her anymore, Sarah said, her voice breaking. She deserved the truth. Yes, she did. Judge Caprio turned to Emily. And you, young lady, you've been through something no teenager should have to go through. Watching a parent struggle with addiction, being afraid, being disappointed, having to grow up too fast. Emily's eyes filled with tears. But you're here, the judge continued, supporting your mother while she does the hard work. That takes strength. She's my mom, Emily said simply. Judge Caprio nodded, his expression softening. I'm going to ask you something, Emily, and I need you to be honest with me like you've been honest so far. Okay. Why did you agree to come here today? Emily looked at her mother, then back at the judge. Because she asked me to. Her voice was steady now, despite the tears. And because she stopped, searching for the right words. Your Honor, she's never asked me for help before. She's always been the one taking care of me. So when she asked if I'd come here, if I'd stand with her while she faced this, Emily's voice cracked. I said yes because she finally let me see her. The real her, not the version she was pretending to be. What do you mean? The judge asked gently. Before, she pretended everything was fine, that she was fine, that the drinking was no big deal. Emily wiped her eyes. But it was a big deal. Judge Caprio was quiet for a long moment, his hands folded on the bench, his expression thoughtful. Miss Chen, he said finally, I'm going to tell you something about this courtroom, about what I try to do here. Sarah nodded, listening. People come through here every day with violations, parking tickets, traffic violations, minor offenses, and yes, sometimes more serious charges like yours. He gestured around the courtroom. The law says I have to enforce certain penalties, fines, suspensions, court costs. That's my job. I understand, Your Honor. But my job is also to see the people standing in front of me, to understand why they're here, to recognize when someone made a mistake, and when someone is taking responsibility for that mistake. He paused. You brought your daughter to court. That took courage. Sarah's hands were trembling. I just wanted her to see. I know what you wanted her to see, Judge Caprio interrupted gently. You wanted her to see you being accountable. You wanted her to see that actions have consequences. You wanted her to see you doing the hard work of getting better. He leaned forward. That's not common, Ms. Chen. People usually do the opposite. They hide their shame. They minimize their mistakes. They make excuses. I can't afford to make excuses anymore, Sarah whispered. No, the judge agreed. You can't, because you have someone counting on you. He looked at Emily. Someone who's watching every day to see if you mean what you say. Emily reached over and took her mother's hand. Judge Caprio picked up the file again. The standard penalty for first offense DUI is $500 plus $285 in court costs, $785 total. Sarah nodded. I can pay that, Your Honor. I'm sure you can. He set the file down. But I'm not going to require it. Sarah's eyes widened. Your Honor? The fine is waived, Judge Caprio said. You'll pay the court costs, $285, but the $500 penalty is dismissed. I don't understand, Sarah stammered. You've already paid, the judge said simply. Your insurance costs, your job security, your peace of mind, the trust you lost with your daughter. He gestured to the file. The law gives me discretion, and I'm using it. You've shown genuine remorse. You've taken immediate action. You've been honest about your struggle. Sarah was crying openly now, her hand gripping Emily's. But there are conditions, Judge Caprio continued, his voice firm. You will continue your treatment. All of it. The outpatient program, the therapy, the AA meetings. You will remain sober, and you will return to this courtroom in 6 months. 6 months? Sarah asked. 6 months, the judge confirmed. You'll come back here and tell me how you're doing. Show me you've stayed on track. Can you do that? Yes, Your Honor. Sarah's voice was thick with emotion. Yes, I can do that. Your daughter is watching you, Judge Caprio said, looking directly at Sarah. Every day she's watching to see if you mean what you say, if the changes are real, if the promises matter. He softened slightly. Show her that follow-through matters. Show her that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. Emily was crying too now, her head resting against her mother's shoulder. Judge Caprio turned his attention to Emily. Young lady, I want to talk to you for a moment. Emily straightened, wiping her eyes. Yes, Your Honor. You're brave, he said. Coming here today, supporting your mother, that takes real strength. Thank you, she whispered. But I want you to remember something important. The judge's voice was gentle but serious. You can support your mother. You can love her. You can be proud of her for getting help. But you are not responsible for her sobriety. Emily's brow furrowed slightly. What I mean is this, Judge Caprio continued. Your mother's recovery is her work, not yours. You didn't cause her drinking, and you can't cure it. Do you understand? I think so. You're 16 years old. You should be thinking about school, friends, volleyball. He smiled slightly. Not whether your mother is going to drink tonight. But I want to help her, Emily said. And you can help her by taking care of yourself, the judge said. By going to those Alateen meetings. By being honest about how you feel. By remembering that you're the child and she's the parent. Even when things feel reversed. Sarah was watching the exchange with a mixture of gratitude and pain. Your mother is doing hard work right now, Judge Caprio said. The hardest work of her life, probably. And part of that work is learning to be the parent again, to carry her own weight, to not lean on you more than she should. He looked at Sarah. Isn't that right, Ms. Chen? Yes, Your Honor, Sarah said, her voice raw. I'm supposed to protect her, not the other way around. But right now, the judge said gently, you're teaching her something important. You're teaching her that adults make mistakes, that people can change, that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. He paused. That's protection too, just a different kind. Sarah let out a breath that was half sob, half laugh. Judge Caprio addressed Emily again. Will you promise me something? What, Your Honor? Keep going to Alateen. Keep talking about how you feel with your mother, with your group, with someone you trust. Don't carry this alone. I won't, Emily said. I'm good. He smiled at her. You're going to be okay. Both of you are going to be okay. But it takes work. Every day. I know, Emily said softly. The judge turned back to Sarah. Ms. Chen, I'm going to say this one more time, and I need you to hear me. I'm listening, Your Honor. Your daughter is watching. She's watching to see if the person you are today is the person you'll be tomorrow, and next week, and next month. His voice was firm but kind. Don't let her down. I won't, Sarah promised, her voice breaking. I won't let her down, I promise. Then we're done here, Judge Caprio said. Pay the court costs at the clerk's office. Come back in 6 months. He checked his calendar. April 15th, 10 a.m. We'll see how you're doing. Thank you, Your Honor. Sarah could barely get the words out. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet, the judge said with a slight smile. Thank me in 6 months when you come back sober. Sarah and Emily stepped back from the podium, both of them visibly shaken. But something had shifted. The tension that had held Sarah rigid at the beginning was gone, replaced by exhausted relief. Emily's hand was still in her mother's, and neither of them seemed ready to let go. Ms. Chen, Judge Caprio said as they turned to leave. Sarah turned back. Yes, Your Honor? I meant what I said. 6 months. I want to see you again. You will, Sarah said. I'll be here. The judge nodded, satisfied. The clerk was already preparing the paperwork for the next case, and the courtroom rhythm was beginning to resume. But for a moment, everything paused. Sarah and Emily, standing together in the space between the podium and the gallery, Judge Caprio watching them with an expression that held both hope and hard-won wisdom. Your Honor, Emily said suddenly, turning back. Yes? Thank you for listening to her, to both of us. The judge's expression softened. That's what we're here for. At the clerk's desk, Sarah filled out the payment form with shaking hands. Emily stood beside her, quiet and watchful. When Sarah pulled out her credit card, Emily touched her arm gently. Mom. Sarah looked at her daughter. You did it, Emily said simply. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. We did it. They gathered the receipt and the paperwork, proof of payment, the notice for the 6-month follow-up, the conditions of the judge's ruling typed neatly on court letterhead. Sarah folded everything carefully and tucked it into her purse. As they walked toward the courtroom exit, Sarah paused and looked back. Judge Caprio was already engaged with the next case, a man with a parking violation, something routine and mundane. The courtroom had moved on, as courtrooms do, but Sarah stood there for a moment, watching, remembering how it felt to stand at that podium, terrified and ashamed. How it felt to hear the judge's questions, his curiosity, his refusal to see just a case number, how it felt to be seen as a person trying to get better, not just a defendant who had failed. Emily tugged at her sleeve gently. "Come on, Mom. Let's go home." Sarah nodded, and together they walked out into the bright Rhode Island afternoon.